This podcast is supported by AT&T Active Armor. Right now, our lives are on our phones. And with our phones full of live-streamed exercise classes, midday work calls, and nightly family video calls, there's no room for fraud calls. Thankfully, AT&T makes customer security a priority, helping block those pesky calls. It's not complicated. AT&T Active Armor, 24/7 proactive network security and fraud call blocking to help stop threats at no extra charge. Compatible device service required. Visit AT&T.com/activearmor for details.
590 ESPN. Omaha! It's the Nick Handley Show, streaming on your smart speaker and the new AM 590 app for your phone.
Stand by to receive our transmission.
Follow on Twitter at Nick ESPN 590.
Hour 2 of the Nick Handley Show, AM 590 ESPN Omaha, alongside TJ Henning. Appreciate you making us part of your afternoon. Hope you're having a good one. Going to be getting some post-NFL draft thoughts from Brian Bosarge of DeepFriedDraft.com. And then coming up in the 4 o'clock hour, for you Kansas City Chiefs fans, we'll get the full draft report from Nick Athen of PrimetimeSportsTalk.com. Rehab report just around the corner. Luis Roberts' hip flexor injury will be the topic of discussion with myself and Travis, and also Chris Basnett of the Lincoln Journal-Star, talking Husker football and baseball at 5:15. Our guests and your phone calls on the Limitless Mail Medical Hotline, 402-573-0590, and the DJ's Dugout inbox is open for you on Twitter at NickESPN590. So, if you are a Denver Bronco fan, how you doing? If you are a Denver Bronco fan, you have now entered into that world, as we talked a lot yesterday, for every team in the draft, or for Nebraska football fans, when you see something good in what is essentially a meaningless scrimmage on Saturday, you want to draw hope. Isn't that what we are all in this for as fans? We want hope. Real hope. Not false hope. Something that we can watch with our own eyes and try to be as objective as possible and say, I know I shouldn't, but this gets me excited. Okay? I'm watching the defense for Nebraska on Saturday. In those first 2 drives, mind you, against an offense that... a conversation for another day. But I'm like, all right, this is how it should look. It gives me hope that they can validate our feelings that could be the strength of this team. What happened to my beloved Chicago Bears Thursday night? For the first time in my lifetime, they drafted a QB that seems like he's the real deal. That's objective hope. That's like, okay, based on what I saw him do in college and understanding that there's always a bust rate, based on that, I have real hope. And for anybody who's rooting for any team in the NFL draft, unless, I guess, TJ, I didn't look at who had the worst draft grades, but if you felt like you drafted in a level that got you an A or a B, you're probably saying, all right, that's what draft weekend's for, right? Gives your fan base hope.
Yeah, I think I saw Kuiper had the Steelers as his worst grade.
Uh-oh.
C+ or C-.
All right, for you Steeler fans, no hope. See, that's when you can still talk yourself into it. Be like, I don't care. Now, that's what I call false hope. You're blinded by your love for the team, okay? There's a difference there between false hope and your loyalty to the team, or just, blind faith, compared to legitimate hope. The Denver Broncos, the reason I ask how you're doing today is because a lot of people linking the Broncos to the Aaron Rodgers sweepstakes. Bill Barnwell has the trade offers, the 7 NFL teams and proposals ranked from least appealing to most attractive. And he narrowed it down to 7 teams who have a legitimate shot at getting Aaron Rodgers, because it seems like this thing is probably more than 50% happening. And I'll tell you We'll play my guy Rob Domofsky from ESPN, what he had to say to Diana Rossini earlier today. But I want to read Bill Barnwell's number one proposal that makes sense. And Denver fans, this involves you. Denver Broncos. Packers would get Patrick Surtain, which was the Broncos' first-round pick. Pretty good one, too. Wide receiver Tim Patrick, quarterback Drew Lock. It's a bummer. 2022 first-round pick, 2023 first-round pick. Broncos get not only Aaron Rodgers, but also Eric Stokes. So,
no way.
If I'm a Bronco fan, what the Packers would get, I don't even care. I don't care. Because I know I'm getting Aaron Rodgers. And I talked a lot about this yesterday that, remember, you're getting Aaron Rodgers for maybe a maximum of 4 years. But realistically, 2-3 good years, and there's always that, Rodgers kind of interested in other stuff, whatever. This wouldn't be the first time that the Broncos were able to land an elite quarterback. Now, the difference between Peyton Manning and Aaron Rodgers is Rodgers still has something in the arm. Rodgers can play. Peyton was, he threw the ball okay when he first got to Denver, but that diminished quite quickly. But his overall offensive presence of coach on the field, getting this team into the right position more times than not, that is an extremely valuable commodity. Aaron Rodgers has all of that, plus a Greek god arm, and just makes it happen. So you're getting that for 2, maybe 3 years of really good Aaron Rodgers football. Then after that, who knows? Keep going. Could pull a TB12. I don't know. But you don't care what you give up, because I think the situation the Broncos are in, and TJ, you brought this up, I think it was either Friday or even yesterday. Broncos are ready to win defensively. Offensively is where you're just what are they doing? Is Drew Lock your guy? Okay, now you're hoping Teddy Bridgewater's your guy? What are you doing? And you would have Bridgewater as a backup quarterback, so that's a good situation if something happened to Rodgers. But I think that now as a Bronco fan, everywhere you turn, you hear your team linked to Rodgers. I will give you this one caution, though. These things sometimes don't always work out. In fact, a lot of times they don't. If Rodgers doesn't end up playing for Green Bay in 2021, and there's still a chance that he could, seems like a lot of the signs are pointing that he won't, somebody can come in at the 11th hour, and it shocks us all. I'm trying to remember when Peyton Manning wound up with the Broncos. Remember, he's kind of doing it was almost like the college visits. Everybody, where's Peyton today? Okay, Peyton just left there. No deal in place. All right, he's going here tomorrow. All right, no deal in place. Okay, now he's going here. I don't know if it becomes that because Rodgers is still under contract. So it's not like a free agency, tour around the country. But I guarantee you, as we get closer to something, there will be other teams thrown in there, whether it's a Vegas. Now, just for reference of Bill Barnwell's trade proposals, the second trade that makes the most sense actually is the Washington football team. The third trade that makes the most sense to Bill Barnwell is the Miami Dolphins getting Rodgers. It'd actually be a 3-team deal with the Steelers, Dolphins, and Packers. The fourth trade that makes the most sense, again, according to Bill Barnwell, New York Giants. The fifth team, the Cleveland Browns. And yes, Green Bay, you would get Baker Mayfield. The sixth scenario is the Las Vegas Raiders. Keep your eye on them. That's the team that I think, if it's not the Broncos, somehow Vegas pulls this off and the pumpkin pie haircut looking freak and Mark Davis make this thing happen.
Did anybody see my friend Antonio Brown?
Yeah, that guy too. The seventh out of the 7 teams that Bill Barnwell lists, the seventh least appealing offer goes to the Tennessee Titans, where the Packers would get Ryan Tannehill. All right, so I mentioned Rob Demovsky, who told Jeff Dickerson of ESPN Chicago that the likelihood of Rodgers being in Green Bay is less than 5%.
Yeah!
And being Green Bay in 2021. Rob Demovsky was on with Diana Rossini this morning on ESPN, and here was Demovsky's latest on the Rodgers situation.
They said they weren't going to trade him, but here's a key date when they might trade him, and that's after June 1st. I've already got it written on my calendar. June 2nd, 7:05 a.m., I'm on with Greeny to talk about what happens now because they might trade him then. And the reason? Because that's when the salary cap hit will be less for them if they move on. Right now, if they traded him, and there's no point in trading him now because they didn't do it before the draft where they could have gotten immediate help, but they would have saved only about $5 million on their salary cap. If they do it after June 1, they pick up $25 million on their cap right away.
First of all, Rob is spot on when it comes to this June 1st date. This is what league circles have been sharing with me. If you're going to see any movement with Aaron Rodgers, it's going to be after that June 1 date. So let's talk about how everyone else is looking at the Packers right now from the outside. I had one head coach yesterday say, this reminds me of a marriage where one partner wants to get counseling and the other partner doesn't. And we all know those couples out there in the world, and we know what happens, right? They get a divorce. There's certainly a feeling that this is not going to work out. I know Rob uses that 5% way of describing it. And look, there's no way to really put a percentage on it. I can just tell you around the league, there aren't a lot of people that have belief that Aaron Rodgers is going to return to the Green Bay Packers. The Denver Broncos continue to be the team I hear that are going to be the most interested and are going to put the most in front of the Green Bay Packers to try to make this trade go down. Just adding one more layer to what Rob was adding in terms of talking to the Packers. I've had some conversations with the organization as well, and the sentiment there and the feeling I get at this point is deflated. They are absolutely deflated at this point, as we know they've been trying to fix this. They've been trying to mend it, but for them, they know this is up to a very strong, stubborn, smart quarterback named Aaron Rodgers who's going to do what Aaron Rodgers wants to do.
So Bronco fans, again, be excited, take a deep breath, hope for the best. Because, again, I think what was floated out there by Bill Barnwell is more than doable on your end, on what you would give up for Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers versus P. Mahomes twice a year. Yeah, I think we'd all root for that.
High five.
Just be aware that somebody, and it's kind of interesting, it could be a team that's in your division as well, Las Vegas, might get extremely envious and desperate and say, I'll see your offer and raise you this. Because remember, the Packers, they're looking at it from the standpoint of who is going to give us the most. All right? And the other thing that I would look at, if somehow, well, I would assume Derek Carr becomes a part of this, who would you rather want as your bridge to whenever Jordan Love is ready, Green Bay? Would you want Derek Carr or would you want Drew Lock? I think we both know the answer to that. So just be mindful of your division rival in Vegas. They could be lurking. Probably are lurking. It's ultimately going to come down to where A-Rod probably, well, again, I don't know if he has it say. But we'll see. Because I don't know, does he have the no trade in his I don't know if he does. I know Russell Wilson does. I don't know if Rodgers
I don't have an
does.
answer for you, bud.
Yeah, we'll have to maybe check that out. Hey, so by the way, you know what's also been great about the NFL draft is we got to take a break from the Deshaun Watson conversation on what's going on there. Well, as the draft ends, now we start to look at, because, hey, Houston did get a quarterback in the draft. We start to now take a look at where things stand with Deshaun Watson, and could he potentially miss the 2021 season? We'll get to that next. So there is not, as TJ is telling me, his contract, Aaron Rodgers that is, does not have a no-trade clause. So Green Bay wants to send him to Vegas, they can do that. They control, from what we're hearing, they control where he goes. if he goes. So again, who's going to give them the most? I start to think if I'm Green Bay, Drew Lock does very little for me. And if I don't feel confident that Jordan Love is ready to come right in and be a starting quarterback in year 2 of his rookie year, and I need a guy at least for another season, I would much rather have Derek Carr than I would Drew Lock. Nothing against Pop and Lock, man. He'll entertain you on the sideline, especially if you got some hip-hop blaring over the speakers. The guy can jive, man. Jury's still out if he's a good NFL quarterback, though.
Yeah. So there's a chance, though, we already may have half the NFL eliminated. This is going to come from Diana Rossini here after what Marcus Spears think he should go to the Saints. Here's this audio from Get Up earlier today.
Another team that I thought about was the New Orleans Saints. I would put Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston on notice and tell them, look, man, if we need to send you guys to Green Bay to get Aaron Rodgers, that's what we are going to do. I'm thinking about rosters that are close to being Super Bowl contenders or Aaron Rodgers away from being in the Super Bowl. Those are two places that I would think of. But if you think about the move that Denver just made to get Teddy Bridgewater, I would absolutely have him in that package if Denver is going to be aggressive about trying to go get Aaron Rodgers.
Marcus, I love the Saints theory. That was actually my favorite team when I first started hearing about this Rodgers thing. I called around, that's not happening. They're not going to trade him to an NFC team because my thought was, hey, Seattle, switch it up. Send Russ there, send Rodgers to Seattle. Everyone's happy. Russ was a little miserable, right? And look, Russell's got some protection in Green Bay. Aaron's got all the weapons in the world. In Seattle, it could be perfect, right? Look, we could sit here all day long and come up with all the different theories, but the reality is the team that's standing out in terms of having the ability to get this done at this point in early May continues to be the Denver Broncos. So we'll see.
Keep your eye on Vegas, my man. Keep your eye on Vegas. It might come down to which QB would we get out of it? Do we want Drew Lock? Do we want Derek Carr? Because I would assume, and I don't know exactly what kind of draft capital Vegas has compared to Denver, I would think, though, John Gruden could get extremely creative. John Gruden is a quarterback guy. You tell me that he's not salivating over that opportunity as well? Vic Fangio is one of those guys that had to deal with Aaron Rodgers when he was a defensive coordinator in Chicago. So he's very familiar with Aaron Rodgers, too. I get that, but we'll see. I mean, again, it's important to remember Aaron Rodgers has very little say in this. If you're Green Bay and you're going to do this, you are going to get the most impressive haul that's going to not only give you sustainable future picks, but also help you right now. And I'm sorry, Derek Carr helps you more than Drew Lock. He just does. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying the Bronco thing, again, this is more advice to Bronco fans. Get excited because that's awesome to know that you're being linked to it. But don't assume it's a slam dunk because especially not just Vegas, but some other AFC teams could throw their hat in the ring and they could also say, hey, we got a QB might be a little bit better than Drew Lock that we could put as a part of this deal. Hell, I'd say even Tennessee with Ryan Tannehill would be an upgrade over Drew Lock. I'm just saying. Just be cautiously optimistic. There you go. What about Deshaun Watson? Because when you think about everything that has gone on in the offseason, the story that we talked about so much, speaking of disgruntled quarterbacks and not happy with moves made by the organization, Deshaun Watson, I mean, he was the first guy before anyone really started to air their grievances, but then Deshaun Watson got himself in a little bit of hot water. So if we start to kind of look at what Houston did in the draft, and when you think about the QBs that went in the draft, a guy that a lot of people are extremely high on in Davis Mills as one of those tier 2 guys. They got him in the 3rd round, and what some would consider to be a value pick, which you're trying to address that position. I get it, because even if Deshaun Watson is available this season, how much longer is he going to be there given the relationship between the two parties? But the question is now, Did the Houston Texans go after Davis Mills because they doubt Deshaun Watson will be cleared through the league to play in 2021, considering the legal entanglement that he is in with the amount of lawsuits against him? Here's Adam Schefter on the latest on what he's hearing about Deshaun Watson.
What a wild off-season for the Houston Texans. It opens with Deshaun Watson telling the team he wants them to trade him, and now it's in a situation where Deshaun Watson is facing 22 civil lawsuits alleging inappropriate conduct and sexual assault. The league is reviewing the matter. The authorities in Houston are looking at the matter, and right now it's a situation where the Texans used their first pick in the draft on a quarterback, the 67th overall selection. And they could say it's the best player on their board or whatever they want. But the fact of the matter is there are people in league circles who believe Deshaun Watson will not play this season. There are people who believe his career in Houston is over. And the Texans know they face a tremendous amount of quarterback uncertainty, which is why they used the third-round pick on Davis Mills. And now you have Davis Mills joining Tyrod Taylor and Ryan Finley to give the Texans their trio of quarterbacks. And we'll hear plenty more about this particular situation as the season gets closer, Reese.
So obviously the situation facing Deshaun Watson is a serious one, just from a legal standpoint, okay? That goes without saying. But I'm going to shift it over to the Houston Texans in the predicament they find themselves in. Now you are not even getting phone calls about Deshaun Watson. And I don't want to say that they're going to look back and kick themselves because they didn't make the move. But let's at least acknowledge the potential reality here. If Deshaun Watson is deemed ineligible or is he suspended for a good chunk of the season, well, he doesn't even need to sit out. That's being forced upon him by the NFL. The following year, he gets sent out. Are you still getting the same type of haul that you would have before all of this happened? I mean, just think if you're the Houston Texans and you decided, you know what, all right, cool. You don't want to be here. Why wait anymore? Let's go ahead and make something happen. Let's maximize the return we can get on you. And they could have got another QB. They could have got an extremely high draft pick and found their quarterback of the future. And then Deshaun Watson and this whole ordeal would have been someone else's problem, not Houston's problem. So for Deshaun Watson, this is not a good situation that he's in both professionally and personally. But for the Houston Texans, are they going to now look back and say, my gosh, why did we not do this earlier? And I can't imagine they saw this coming. But being stubborn, as a lot of teams are, and I get it. I get why you are having a tough time letting go of the franchise guy and trying to make it work. This could come back and really bite them right in the keister. All right, we're going to get some post-NFL draft thoughts with Brian Bosarge of DeepFriedDraft.com and even an early glimpse of maybe some of the players to watch in the 2022 draft, especially the QB class. That's coming up next. I don't care how any other drafts went because this is the one time, and I still feel so weird about it. I'm like, all right, when's the other shoe going to fall? That I felt like the Chicago Bears, my beloved Chicago Bears, not only with the Justin Fields pick, but I love Tevin Jenkins pick. And I like what they did in the back end, the Oregon corner. There's some good stuff there. I feel like they drafted well, and I need somebody to tell me, no, they didn't, because it's weird. I'm not used to the Bears doing this. We welcome in Brian Bosarge of DeepFriedDraft.com to get some post-draft analysis. And Brian, let's start right there. I mean, that's got to be one of the bigger storylines in the draft, at least on the first night, is the Bears, first of all, having Justin Fields fall out of the top 10 to where they could make that jump up to get him. But the fact that this is Ryan Pace, he's not always known of making the right call. He actually goes after Fields and not a Mac Jones or even a Davis Mills. What's your just overall thoughts on what they did?
First of all, Ryan Pace should probably send a fruit basket to the Philadelphia front office, because if they don't trade up ahead of the Giants to take Devontae Smith, and the Giants are going to stay put there at 11 and take Smith. So basically by them doing that, they force the Giants' hand to take the deal, allow the Bears to move up and get the second best quarterback in this draft class, Justin Fields. I think I've told you this before on your show. I love Justin Fields, love everything about his game. And I think, he's going to be a future star in Chicago. I think they finally got their quarterback that they've been looking for a long time now. So Fields, Chicago, it's a win-win for everybody.
The Tevin Jenkins one, too, that one I was actually surprised they moved up, and I thought, this is going to be interesting. What do they do? And I saw in a lot of mocks leading up to Thursday night that if Chicago stayed at number 20 in the first round, Tevin Jenkins was kind of linked to them. So they get an opportunity to get him in the second. Is that, in your opinion, a pretty good value pick?
Oh, absolutely. It was great value. You started hearing some stuff leak out that maybe there was a lingering injury that Tevin Jenkins had that maybe pushed him out of the first round. That's why teams, were a little concerned there. But to get him at pick 39, I think is great value for Chicago. I like some of the late round picks they had as well. Khalil Herbert, I think, can be a good return guy, backup running back. You said coming in, Thomas Graham, the corner from Oregon, had a good week at the Senior Bowl. Daz Newsome, the receiver from North Carolina, they got in the 6th round. I think he was projected to go higher, had a bad pro day, but I think he can still contribute in the NFL level. And their 7th round pick, don't sleep on Khyiris Tonga. He's a 2-down run plugger. That's all he's going to be. But, man, I actually liked him more than the Shelvin from LSU, the guy the Bengals drafted in the 4th round. I think Tonga was a better prospect, in my opinion, than Tyler Shelvin.
The big question we had going into Thursday night, what would San Francisco do at number 3? And then, of course, we were finding out just, hours before the draft that they were willing to give up that pick and a lot else to get Aaron Rodgers. They don't get Aaron Rodgers. They do get Trey Lance, and that was something that you had predicted as well. So now that it's done and you look at what Trey Lance is going to be surrounded with, and it sounds like Jimmy G's on board to sort of, help the young guy out. Do you think he is the day one starter for the Niners?
I'm going to go out on a limb and say I'm not 100% confident in this, but I think Jimmy Garoppolo is probably going to be the week 1 starter. I'm not saying Trey Lance can't be. I think Trey Lance landed in a perfect situation for him, getting coached by Kyle Shanahan, getting all those weapons they have on offense. But I think it would probably behoove the 49ers to maybe let Jimmy Garoppolo go out there and take some of the bullets and let Lance sit back for a little while. Or if you see the development of Lance in the preseason and then all of a sudden a quarterback for a team goes down, then now you've got a much better value for Jimmy Garoppolo than in August than you have in May.
You also called Mac Jones being available for New England at number 15. And as Chicago had to move up and give up a lot to get to that 11th pick and get Justin Fields, New England can stay pat, and they seemingly have their guy. So, again, with Mac Jones in New England, how long do you think it's going to take for Mac Jones to be the guy there?
I would anticipate probably week 8, week 9, we'll see that transition. Cam Newton's probably not going to be as graceful about this transition as Jimmy Garoppolo appears to be in public. I would say the same for Andy Dalton and Justin Fields. I think you'll see him probably bow out probably a lot quicker than the other two, to be honest. But, I think it's going to take a few weeks before they give up on the Cam experiment there and let Mac Jones take over.
Talking to Brian Bosarge of DeepFriedDraft.com here on AM 590. Brian, looking at the draft, first of all, who are maybe the handful of teams that impressed you, that either made the necessary moves that their team needed to because they're maybe missing a piece or two, or just had a lot of needs, they addressed those? Who stood out to you this last weekend?
Two teams that I haven't done a complete deep dive in all 32 yet. I'm kind of working my way through that over the next couple of weeks at DeepFriedDraft.com. But the two that immediately stand out to me are Buffalo. They in the AFC Championship game, they saw they couldn't get to the quarterback, or they couldn't corral Patrick Mahomes quite the way Tampa Bay could. So they go out, or they saw what Tampa Bay did and said, hey, let's go get two guys that can get after it. Mm-hmm. First round, they draft Gregory Rousseau, who 15 and a half sacks as a redshirt freshman at Miami, opted out of the season this year, comes out. Below average pro day for what we were expecting. And then they draft Carlos Boogie Basham out of Wake Forest, one of the most consistent pass rushers the last 3 years in the ACC. So they get those two guys, and then in the third and the fifth round, they draft just two athletic skyscrapers at offensive tackle, Spencer Brown, Tommy Doyle, Northern Iowa, Miami of Ohio, respectively, both 6'8". Spencer Brown's tested better than any offensive tackle has tested since 1987 at the position, despite being 6'8", 314. Tommy Doyle wasn't far behind him, 6'8", 320. They both move well, I think, and then they added a couple other players I think are going to be able to contribute as rookies. Carolina was another team. They stayed pat, took J.C. Horn, the best man cover corner in the draft, and then added Terrence Marshall, the wide receiver from LSU, in the second round, who goes right back into the Joe Brady offense. They get Chuba Hubbard as a running back in the fourth round. I think can contribute. Brady Christensen, a tackle, in the third round. So I really liked initially what Carolina and Buffalo did.
Brian, I always hate saying like who had the worst draft because honestly, we're never going to know, at least initially, unless they just forgot to make picks, right? I mean, but was there somebody that kind of confused you? Any team or teams that you were just kind of left flat with what they accomplished this weekend?
It's easy to say Seattle and Houston just because they had the fewest picks. Seattle only had 3 picks all weekend, so those are two easy ones to say. But Dallas, as far as a team who had 10 picks, they don't pick up the fifth-year option on Leighton Vander Esch, so Micah Parsons, the pick, kind of makes a little more sense now. But they drafted 3 cornerbacks. All were reaches with the exception of the last one. They drafted cornerback Nashawn Wright, Morgan State, who was the only player that was drafted in the first 3 rounds, not on the Athletics top 300 consensus board. And then Kelvin Joseph was probably drafted about 2 rounds too high, the Kentucky corner. He had I didn't project him to go that high. And they drafted another stiff guy who I'm very familiar with, Israel Mukuamu from South Carolina. He's 6'4". They're projecting him probably to move to safety. They drafted some other players with character issues, like Josh Ball in the 4th round from Marshall has a lot of baggage. And then they come back and draft Jabril Cox, the linebacker from LSU, who if they had drafted in the 2nd round, I would have been okay with it had they not already added Parsons. I just don't get where Cox fits in there with the other. I didn't overly care for the Dallas draft.
Brian, the other, I want to get to kind of the tier 2 quarterbacks. You mentioned Houston, and I know that they addressed in their first pick in the 3rd round getting a quarterback in Davis Mills. Obviously, the uncertainty of Deshaun Watson probably forced them to. I wanted to get your thoughts on Davis Mills to Houston and also Kyle Trask going to Tampa Bay and having Tom Brady kind of be the mentor, if you will, for a guy like Trask and how that could be beneficial for him.
I actually really like the Kyle Trask pick to Tampa Bay. He was my number 6 quarterback. He was the 6th quarterback taken. I think he's going to a great situation with Tampa Bay. How often can you say you get to learn from the greatest of all time and Tom Brady? So that's what he's going to get to do. Probably sit 1-2 years, and then maybe it's his chance, or maybe he shines in the preseason and then they end up moving him for a 1st-round pick down the road. I mean, it could happen. It's happened in the past. Davis Mills, I was not a fan of him in the lead up. I think he was my QB 12 in this draft class. I wasn't a big Davis Mills guy at all. He's only played in 11 games in college. I went back and watched 3 games of his spanning over 2018, 2019. Wasn't enthralled with his passing ability at all. I actually preferred Kellen Mond and Ian Book and some others over him. Even a couple guys that didn't get drafted, I would have rather seen like Felipe Franks from Florida/Arkansas. I thought I would rather have the pure just athletic ability and arm strength of Franks over someone like Davis Mills to play with. But Franks even went undrafted. But no, I just wasn't a big Davis Mills guy.
Lastly, Brian, and I know it's the way too early thoughts on the 2022 draft class, but as far as what you're hearing and what you kind of anticipate for that QB class, do you think that will be stronger, deeper than what we're at least think we're seeing in 2021, or is that one going to be kind of a mixed bag?
I think we always feel like the next year's quarterback class is always better than the last year's quarterback class. I don't see that early on, I'm sure, but I think the new norm's going to be 4 quarterbacks go in every 1st round now. Yeah. The name that is getting the most attention is Sam Howell, the quarterback from North Carolina. I've heard Spencer Rattler's name bandied about as a potential 1st-round pick from Oklahoma. I haven't watched him at all yet. But here, I'm going to give you a name to remember that is a guy I watched at least 5 times last year by accident. Didn't mean to do it, but kind of happened. He'll be a junior this year. Carson Strong from Nevada.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's got a big-time arm. He's got athletic ability. He moves the pocket well. And we've seen Mountain West quarterbacks like Josh Allen a few years ago come in and have success in the NFL. I think Carson Strong is a name that could make a move into that first-round area between now and next April.
All right, good stuff there. It's Brian Bosarge with DeepFriedDraft.com. And again, all of the team breakdowns post-draft going on there at DeepFriedDraft.com, so be sure to check that out. Brian, really appreciate you coming on during all the draft lead-up, man. I know we'll be talking to you here very soon, but thanks again for coming on and keeping us updated, man.
Hey, I appreciate you having me on.
All right, when we come back in and get into some Husker baseball talk real quickly, what does Nebraska need to do to get back on track, especially with a very challenging weekend? We'll get into that. Also coming up in the 4 o'clock hour, very busy hour, but we got plenty of thoughts from Adrian Martinez on his spring. We'll play that for you as well. So real quickly, I want to get to some Will Bolt audio from Sunday, but TJ, did you see Teddy Allen is actually going to play more college basketball? How about that? This will be now 5 schools that Teddy Allen has experienced in his collegiate career, and the most recent stop will be New Mexico State. And look, everybody's situation is their own, but this is where I look at the transfer situation, and I think to myself, if you're a school that is getting somebody who's had that many stops, there's got to be part of you that's just like, can we trust the guy? Can we trust them? I mean, that's a lot of moving.
Yeah.
And the time that you have a lot, it's not like you have 10 years to do it either.
Who knows if he'll be immediately eligible or not because he's transferred so much.
Right.
So would he really want to set a whole another year to play one more year? Call it? I don't know.
Well, and that's the other thing with the 1 year like transfer forgiveness rule where you don't have to sit out a year. Is that like retroactive? Like if you've already transferred that many times, does that apply to you?
I don't believe so. I think it only applies to first time.
Just first time, right? Yeah. And I'm just, look, wish him the very best. I absolutely do. And I know that he's a father now, and you hope the very best, but that's just crazy to me. 5 schools that you are now having played for is just unbelievable. All right, so question this weekend, and Ben McLaughlin and myself will be out there in Piscataway, New Jersey this weekend as Nebraska tries to get back on beam and try to erase a really tough weekend against Rutgers. What do they need to do? Like, what is it going to take between now and Saturday for this team to get right? And Will Bolt was asked after the game about what this week of practice will mean in the efforts of being kind of back into that positive place that they really have been pretty much all season leading up to this weekend.
Yeah, there's not going to be a massive overhaul or a massive change. I mean, that's the thing with this group. We've had a consistent message all year long as a coaching staff. I have a group of captains and older guys and leaders that have made sure that we show up ready to practice and compete at a high level every day, just so that's become our identity. So we're not going to make wholesale changes. I just think maybe the intent with which we work, it just needs to be amplified a little bit. And that starts with the minute your feet hit the floor in the morning. What are you doing? Is your hair on fire to go get better, or are you just kind of going through the motions of saying that you are? So we've all got to do a great job this week of that, like you said. I mean, and that's the thing that this season presents as well. Each weekend is its own individual, good or bad. It's its own individual battle. And you go up and down the standings of the league, everybody's had kind of this bump in the road during the season. And we've lost 3 games in a row earlier this year and came back with a vengeance. So we're going to stay consistent with our message. We're going to stay consistent with our work habits. And we know if we do that repeatedly, then we've got a shot to play consistent baseball.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I really kind of would second on what Will's saying is you can't let what happened this weekend just completely freak you out to where it takes you off kilter and you just can't recover. But it's got to get your attention. And I don't think there's any question it has Nebraska's attention because they're still a good baseball team. And he made reference to some other teams that have kind of gone through the struggle. Indiana who's now ranked and a half game up in the Big Ten, the third and fourth week of the season, man, they struggled big time. They were losing games to some teams just like, how the hell is that happening? Michigan just recently, they lost 2 to Rutgers and then split with Illinois in a 4-game set last weekend. So Michigan's kind of, hit a little bit of a rough spot. Now Nebraska too. So it's going to be, I still think between those 3 teams and possibly Iowa, who can kind of finish the strongest right now.